Hi everyone, it's Evie, and today I'm going to be presenting my Drawdown podcast. And I chose to listen to the one by Alicia Graves regarding women and girls. So we're just going to jump right into it. So I first wanted to start off by giving you guys a little bit of a background of who Alicia Graves is and what she's doing. So Alicia is one of many helping to find carbon reduction solutions through education and family planning projects. She is very aware that empowering women and girls is one of many solutions to reducing population growth. And she kind of explains how population growth is one of many contributors to global warming because it means that more people are using our resources. So the way that I thought of it was more people on Earth means more cars on the road, more electricity that we have to create, and it's just going to be leaving a larger footprint basically. And she also claims that lower population rates means that we have fewer greenhouse gases created in the first place, which I thought was a really good point. She also notes that the people that are really concerned about sustainability, such as researchers or scientists, often fail to acknowledge the fact that there is a population factor on global warming. So that's something that she addresses in the podcast. So now moving on to just a little bit of what she's doing to fight this and to really help with drawdown. So right now she is running a nonprofit focused on empowering women to choose how big they want their families to be in an attempt to stabilize the global population. And she's also in charge of running the Oasis Project, which was started at Berkeley University. And it basically is fighting to overcome developmental problems in Senegal, Africa. And in case anyone doesn't know what that is, it's basically right next to the Sahara Desert in Africa. So now moving forward, talking about like the problem and possible solutions that they found. So the Sahel region encompasses the world's poorest countries in the entire world. So these are places where women have very low social status and have often a very low chance of voicing their opinions in terms of birth rights or sexual rights. So just basic like women's rights. And it's also a place in the world where we have very large family sizes. And the podcast notes that in Nigeria, their population is actually the fastest growing in human history. And that's a really concerning statistic considering that 99% of today's population growth is occurring in the poorest countries. And these are countries that are failing again and again to educate women. So Alicia mentions that as population rates have increased over the years, they estimate that 85 million people are added to our population each year, which in the end has a radical impact on climate change. And one way that she kind of illustrated it for us was relating it to Germany. So it's basically the equivalent of adding the size of Germany in terms of people to our population. So it's a radical number. And then as for solutions, Alisha believes that we can help this issue by fighting for women's rights and also educational opportunities. So now moving on to more of the solution side of it. So research has shown that delaying marriage by 5 years, anywhere from 2 to 5 years, can have a 15 to 20% reduction in any country's growth rate, which is huge in alleviating that carbon footprint. And she also mentioned how we can delay marriage and also pregnancies by giving families more options for their girls. So instead of necessarily feeling that they have to be given away to marriage or be having babies, they prefer that their daughters get an education and have a brighter future. So far, the most effective option available is keeping girls in secondary school, which often has additional benefits. And one of those benefits being the fact that they have a better education and better communication skills to really negotiate with their partners about how many children they want to have. And another one that she kind of brought up was that these women often, after they're finished with their education, realize that they might have different aspirations or dreams for their lives. So instead of kind of just going with the flow and having as many kids as uh, they kind of have, they choose that they only want to have 2 or 3 kids so that they can still work and provide an income for themselves or their families. So it was pretty cool listening to that. And then, yeah, it's just in terms of drawdown specs, educating women is ranked number 6, and family planning is ranked number 7, as you guys can see. And it's estimated that we could save 120 gigatons of carbon by empowering women through these projects. So now moving on to some of the challenges. Alisha was kind of, I would say, pretty descriptive about the challenges that her and her team have faced in trying to implement these in different countries. So today, 62 million girls on average face barriers to education and basic reproductive rights. And some of the barriers that she talked about was financial reasons, cultural norms, or religious practices. As for finances, they sometimes don't necessarily have the transportation to get to a store where they can buy contraceptive or birth control. And then as for cultural norms, a lot of countries in Africa are still really desiring to have large families because it's just part of their culture. Like, it's very desirable to have a large family instead of just having a few children. And then in terms of religious practices, it's very taboo in some parts of the world to even be talking about reproductive rights. So that's something that they've also had to kind of go through and try to find other solutions or ways of navigating that for women. But she does mention that research proves that when countries prioritize this as something for the women, fertility rates decrease, which helps reduce our carbon footprint. And she mentions how Thailand and Iran are really good examples of this. So in both of these countries, the governments have made this cause really something that they want to encourage. So families in their countries have gone from averaging 7 or 8 kids to having an average of 3 kids, which really helps with the carbon footprint. And I just kind of wanted to leave you guys with this quote that she kind of mentioned towards the end of the podcast. And she said that things have to be done to allow women to grow into a place where they can make decisions about their lives. So she's really wanting to give these women a voice to choose how many kids they want to have. It's not necessarily about restricting how many kids they have or telling couples what to do, but it's more of empowering these women to actually have a voice in that kind of negotiation with their partners and their husbands or their families. And there's also another important quote that I really liked, and she said, "We need the right environment where women can make choices about their bodies, their lives, and how many children they want to have." And I think that's very important to me, at least, because in America we have so many different rights and also just freedoms that a lot of us don't even realize that that's not a norm for other women to have in different parts of the world. And I just thought it was really educational and also kind of eye-opening to hear what's going on in even Africa or different parts of the world in terms of women's rights and also education. So yeah, that's pretty much it. Here are my references, and thank you again for tuning in. Bye, guys.